I feel like we should start with Wolves, even though that is just such a terrible game that I would rather not relive. But it was 4-2 to Wolves. I mean, Spurs were 1-0 down within 2 minutes. Pretty much, I've seen that story quite a few times this season. Were you at the game?
I wasn't at the game, but I think for a lot of Spurs fans, the most frustrating thing is it just feels like it's been met with a bit of a shrug. Like, people are so used to these league defeats now. This is the 17th league defeat this season. And I think most people would have known when they saw the team sheet that it wasn't going to be a good afternoon for Tottenham.
Yeah.
Obviously, Postecoglou's rotated the team. He's rested some of the players who he knows he's going to really need for the Eintracht Frankfurt game on Thursday night. Personally, I think that's fair enough. I think it makes sense to rotate. It makes sense to put all his eggs in the Europa League basket at this point. The problem is, it's not like he's bringing in brilliant players who are in form and confident and ready to, able to start really well in that game. He's bringing guys who've not played for a while, whose confidence is low. He brought in Bissouma for his first start since Fulham, which was the game at the end of which Postecoglou criticised him in the press conference. He's brought back Tal for his first start since Fulham. He's brought back Archie Gray for his first start since Fulham. And he's bringing in players who are just not really up to speed, I think. And so I think you could, even before the game kicked off, you knew that Wolves have got the momentum, they've got the confidence, they're really well organised under Vitor Pereira. Wolves are heading in the right direction. And they're up against a Spurs team, which is basically like, it's not really a team, it's kind of 11 players thrown together, it felt like. And so I think it was almost inevitable, I think, from the start, that Wolves would just have a bit more energy and a bit more confidence than Tottenham would.
I know that you say about that it is 11 players, and it does feel that way. There's no cohesion whatsoever when it comes to Spurs or that team. But I would say that whether it's the B team or the A team, I don't, if we can call them an A team, because the result is the same with both sets of players, realistically. I don't really feel like the performance level is any better when I've seen it be full strength.
I'm not sure I completely agree with that. I think there's been moments recently, like not a lot, but there's been brief moments where we've seen a little bit more from what you might call the Spurs A team.
Is that, are you referring to Thursday night?
Yeah, I mean, like the AZ Alkmaar at home, I thought they were good. Like away, they were terrible. Home, they weren't amazing, but I thought they were quite good in the second half of that game. Eintracht Frankfurt at home, second half of that game, I thought they were better.
I thought that was probably the best half I'd seen Spurs have probably since, arguably maybe even City. I mean, totally different level of performance.
No, I completely agree. So, and they used the first team. The guys looked really motivated. I thought they played pretty well in that second half. It's a shame they didn't get that margin of victory, which I think realistically they would probably need to take to Germany for the second leg. Even like Saints at home, not a great game. Obviously, Saints are not a very good team. But the first half of that game, I thought Spurs played some good football. Maybe not at their absolute best. So there's been moments in the last month or two where we have seen Spurs play pretty well. Like, okay,
I think you're being quite
maybe
kind.
I'm being kind. Maybe I'm being kind.
I think
but
maybe
we've
you've
seen
been
something, right? We've seen.
I've been deprived of a clutch on to like 10 minutes.
That's what happens though. Like, because the season's been so bad, right? Maybe it's just a natural thing that you latch on to even a sort of 6 out of 10 performance. You think, wow, that was amazing, wasn't it? 6 out of 10. So I think that there's definitely been moments where you've seen like something approaching what you might call Ange ball, or like a sort of positive, confident performance from Spurs. Those moments have been very few and far between. But if you go into a league game like the Wolves game, or like Fulham away, or like various other league games, like the Manchester City home league game, like there've been various league games recently where everybody knows that the emphasis really is on the Europa League, even if Postecoglou doesn't want to say that explicitly. So he rotates players, he gives his good players a rest, and fair enough, because the good players are exhausted. Like everyone's exhausted. But when you keep making that many changes and you're bringing in guys who are low in confidence, who've not played well for a while, who maybe they know that the manager doesn't especially trust them, then I think you're walking into a bit of a disaster. And that is my interpretation of what happened on Sunday.
I do see what you're saying, and I think that obviously when the team and individuals are so low on confidence and result after result, I mean, we're literally 17 losses this season. That doesn't just fall on one set of players, that falls on the whole squad. So in my opinion, that shows the lack of mentality. If I was then getting an opportunity to play, I wouldn't want to finish 17th, 16th, 15th. This squad, it's a disgrace that we are in this position. And I will pin obviously a lot of it on Ange, but there is also a lot of blame that has to lie with the players. The performance level is not good enough. Basuma, I feel like, hasn't been at it probably since Luton last season when he got sent off for diving. So if I'm someone like Basuma who's been called out time and time again and have been called out against Fulham, would I not be more motivated to come in and try and put in a really good performance? I appreciate that there's 10 other players on that pitch and you can't control what Vicario's doing or Romero's doing or Bergau's doing, for example, on Sunday. But why is that not motivating these players that are fringe or trying to get into the first team when, let's be honest, probably apart from Kulusevski, and I would argue Bergau because I'm a big fan of Bergau, positions are up for grabs. No one's cementing their positions in that first team. Why would I not be trying everything I can to drag this team? It needs a leader.
Yeah, well, look, the good thing is there's more than enough blame to go around. It doesn't just have to be Ange. It doesn't just have to be the recruitment. It doesn't just have to be the players. But I agree with you. I certainly think that amongst the players, there's a kind of lack of leadership, a lack of experience. I think the fact is that in 2023, Spurs they sold Harry Kane to Bayern Munich, and then obviously Hugo Lloris went to LAFC in the January window. Eric Dyer went to Bayern Munich in the January window. So that's years and years and years of experience and leadership that Tottenham lost. Even Højbjerg, wasn't everyone's favourite player, but I think he brought a lot in terms of leadership to that group. He's obviously gone to Marseille on loan. So Spurs have lost a lot of their most senior, most important players, right? The guys who are the glue in the dressing room, the guys who really uphold standards, make sure everyone is pulling in the same direction. But with those guys out of the picture, I don't think Tottenham have really been able to replace them. Like if you look at the leadership group at Spurs at the moment, so Son is the captain who I think has had to shoulder a huge burden all by himself, and I think it's kind of worn him down a little bit, is my impression. Maddison, I think, has tried his best this season. He's been a bit up and down. I think he's in a decent run at the moment. He started the last 4 games in the spin. He's very good at coming out and talking to the media afterwards. But I don't think he's really fulfilled his potential this season. No. Romero is another vice captain. I don't think he wants to be there. No. I think the fact he was wearing the captain's armband at the end of the game against Wolves, and he was straight down the tunnel at the end of the game. I think personally, look, I don't care if Romero goes. I don't like the attitude. I feel like I've said it quite a few times, and a lot of the fan base will say it. The level of performance that he puts in for Argentina is never matched when it comes to Tottenham. And I think if you're meant to be captain or vice captain of this club and part of this leadership group, you go over and you clap those fans and you at least show up. And especially when you've made mistakes throughout the whole season, when you have been fit. To me, that is someone that I think, I don't want you anywhere near my club. I don't want a player like that. And we've unfortunately had lots of players like that over years where they think they're bigger than the club. We've had managers that think they're bigger than the club. Antonio Conte will spring to mind in that one. And when you just touched on it, the leaders that have left, I agree with you. But then when that comes back to recruitment, when you're recruiting players, you need to have players that are going to be able to lead a dressing room. I love Sonny. I really, really do. For me, he's not necessarily a leader that I would not get motivated by, but I don't feel like he's the type at this stage in his career where he's going to be like, no, this level of performance is unacceptable, and really be able to kind of give you that like Roy Keane-esque team talk. And I don't see that from James Maddison. I definitely don't see it from Romero either in that behaviour. I can commend James Maddison, especially after Chelsea, when he came out and he said, I know the fans don't want to hear from us, it's unacceptable. But I just think there is no one in that whole side that can really take kind of the game by the scruff of the neck. The only person I would have seen shades of that from this season is actually Archie Gray or Bergau, and they're 18 years old. Well, I think that's part of the problem, isn't it? Is that Spurs lost all these experienced players, like I said, in the last few years. So they lost, like hundreds and hundreds of Tottenham appearances went out the door, and they were replaced with teenagers. Gray, I think Gray, Lucas Bergvall, Wilson Odobert, I think they're all really good buys. I think they're incredibly talented young players. I think Tottenham did well to get them into the building. Really good talent ID by Johan Langer and his team. Antonin Kinski's another one. I think he's going to be a fantastic goalkeeper. So I think they've identified young players really well, and they've done well to sign them. But the problem is, if you lose senior players and you replace them with teenagers, obviously, like the squad as a whole is becoming younger.
And
the squad as a
exactly.
You're not replacing experience with experience, and so that's why we've got this situation at Spurs now in the last year or two, where I think there's just far less experience in the squad, far less leadership. There's less players who've been there, seen it, done it. Really, you've only got Son and Ben Davis who've been there for a long time at the club, because there's been so much turnover of players. And I just think that when I look back at like things that Tottenham might have done differently or better in the last year or two, I think the big I think one of the big missed opportunities was not bringing in some more experienced players last summer. And I don't mean you have to go out and buy like 28-year-olds, 29-year-olds. I mean the sort of players in their early 20s who are at least established in the Premier League, who have been there and done it, and they know what it takes to win games in the Premier League. And if some of those players had come in, I think Spurs would have had an easier time of it.